We're
This
really good.
conference will now be recorded.
And I guess the other thing we probably want to just mention really quickly is that Antonio and I presented the RAS API proposal to the parent team, the Open Compute hardware team, or I guess hardware management. And I don't know if you want to say anything about that, Antonio, but the intent there is to have this is kind of standardizing how Redfish and the BMC work and what the hardware has to do. And then the way I see that proposal is it standardizes the interface between the BMC and the hardware. So, Antonio, do you want to add anything else to that?
Yeah, just that we're contributing it, and it'll take us, I think, that another 2 weeks before we can. The process takes at least another 2 weeks, and after that, I hope we are starting a work stream to work on the next version. So please join us. We'll start the work stream out of the parent group for this. So from the hardware management team, we'll start the work stream. Please join us in defining the version 1.1, and let's move forward to a great standard.
And it really is intended to be the starting point. We're not trying to say this is how it shall be. It's more like, hey, let's work on this. Sorry, go ahead, you guys.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, I think I can share the link to the presentation that both of you made. It's on the OCP website. Is it okay? I can do that, right? So then everyone can see that. Yeah, I just put it in the chat window. So, I mean, I'm completely down if I think some of folks were here, but if you and Antonio want to just give a maybe quick 10-minute overview of what it's about, that's fine too. It's up to.
Why don't we let people take a look and we'll come back to it? Because I guess, I mean, I don't want to cut things off too much, but I'm just worried about this document. We need to get it. I just want to get it done and submitted. The perfection's enemy of good. Let's get it done. It's kind of if that's okay.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. But folks can. Yeah, they have that.
And so Scott, I realized I missed you when the meeting was canceled last week. My hair was on fire and I forgot to reach out to you. So I'm sorry I missed talking to you. The reason I think of that is Scott just said, hey, this proposal, we know we're going to put some more stuff in the future in a different place. So I took your comment down below and moved it here.
Yeah, Drew, that's all fine. And I apologize on that too. Actually, when I texted you, and then I was actually thinking on meeting Thursday, trying to catch up with you on Thursday, but then on Friday I saw you got canceled, and I was like, well, I'm just gonna let this fly or let this ride.
So, I said the same thing. I was more like, oh, good, I can put out another. I have a couple other fires I've been fighting, so yeah. Sounds good. So I still wanted to catch up to you and work through things. Okay, so then let's see. Carlos had some comments about like a vendor decoding analysis tool, and really everywhere we're talking about analysis, we want to decode too. So I changed the tool to match the text here and made sure it was consistent. So I added the word decoding to this picture. If Carlos isn't here though, so, but I'm inclined to just accept this because I think I did it. Okay. I'm looking at other comments. Let's see. Should we add a note? Okay. I did that in the executive summary. We just reviewed it. Okay, and I think Mark, it looks like, made some comments here. Mark, I'm sorry, I haven't had a chance to look through your comments yet. Um, do you want to walk us through them, or how do we want to do this?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's anything there that's earth shattering. I just, what I wanted to see is, in this first, set of boxes, if it's feasible, it should be green. And the idea is that it doesn't mean that we can't call out the limitations or the concerns. I think that should be done as well. But I think, clearly OS management on a bare metal is not feasible, right? So it's fair to
Yeah.
put it as red, but I think firmware first should be green and BMC first should be green, and then both should probably call out the concerns, right? You say not recommended, but I would just say, you know, I'm not sure that language is proper, but I would just say, here are the concerns why we think this is, maybe a lesser satisfactory solution, and we should call out the same concerns that are present for BMC first as well, because ultimately I think security is going to be an issue there for some folks, right? Maybe not Google and their Uber data center, but if you have BMC access to ADT or something similar, I would be vastly concerned about controlling access through that interface.
Sorry,
And
ADT. You're talking about like debug at scale kind of thing, scan.
yeah, exactly. The
Yeah.
idea is I'm sure Intel would love that capability, but if you have it, I mean, that's more vulnerable than SMI in my view, right? You could compromise things far worse than SMI with that capability compromised.
Well, I guess what I'd like to do is keep this from the cloud service provider perspective. And for us, we own the BMC source code and we sign it. So we know what it does and we protect all those interfaces. With SMM, there are vulnerabilities, we believe, where if we ran another company's code on those machines, like a cloud machine, they could compromise the SMM handler. So it's an attack surface for cloud folks that the BMC doesn't have. So in terms of this security concern, for us it is red. It is full stop. SMM must be eliminated in our data centers.
Yeah, well, the idea is that may be your, uh, you know, conclusion, but I don't know that the document should reflect that. The document should basically say, you know, it's certainly possible to do this solution with an in-band integrated solution, and it may have its advantages and it may have its disadvantages. But I just think we should spell those out rather than say, not feasible or red or not recommended. Just tell them what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages, and spell it out. And then let everybody decide for themselves what's, more important and what the better solution is.
Other thoughts from folks? I guess I'm somewhat opposed to that, Mark. I think, but I'm open to. I mean, I'm listening to you though, and I'd like to hear what other folks say. Some people are
Well,
grabbing popcorn to watch us discuss this, Mark.
well, it seems like we don't have a full house today, uh,
Yeah.
limited attendance, and that may be part of it. But the idea
Yeah.
is, I just want the document to be as open as possible, right? And I mean, you say it here, it's feasible, but not recommended. Well, the idea is, I think feasible should make it green, and I don't even know if I would say not recommended. I would say feasible, but then list the advantages and the disadvantages. And I would do that. You've essentially called that out for OS first. where it's just not feasible at all. But then in BMC first, you know, again, your view of the things is, I think, from a Google data center perspective, which has some capabilities beyond probably what most OEMs do. But if you're an OEM, you really have to be prepared to work in every data center, not just Google's. And so,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
so I
So
think that changes the view, right? And that, you know, there may be some OEMs that want to continue with firmware first. Certainly, I would be in that category.
I
Um,
think that this is a matter of customers versus providers. So if you remember, uh, Neil wants to get rid of SMM. Neil from ByteDance wants to get rid of SMM. Microsoft wants to get rid of SMM, and we want to get rid of SMM. So it seems like, from a customer perspective, I'm not hearing anyone going, "I really want SMM."
well, you're hearing it from me.
But you're not a customer. You're a server provider.
Well, that may be, but I can tell you that our solution definitely depends today. We depend heavily on SMI, right? In fact, I would say it's the cornerstone of our RAS solution, and that ultimately that RAS solution is, I mean, it's critical, right? And that, you know, our RAS solution is what basically manages warranty costs. And
Oh, I believe me, I understand that. But imagine that we succeed in doing the things that we talk about here in hardware. I have just been talking to other folks at HP that work in high-end systems that have effectively could do the BMC first approach.
So, Drew, hold on, right? So, Mark, let me just make sure I understand what Mark is saying. Mark, I think what you're saying is, the purpose of this document is to, I don't know, specify or outline a BMC first error logging and handling approach.
Vilas, you're fading in and out to me. Is it me or is it Vilas?
I think it's you, Mark. I could hear him. What about others?
I think it's me because you just faded out too, Drew.
Okay, okay.
But let me reset and I'll come back.
All right, I'll hold.
Okay, thanks, Vilas, for stepping in.
Yeah, just as a
Otherwise,
preview, Drew, I'm gonna agree with Mark, but I want to make sure I understand what he's saying.
Well, and
okay,
also, I got stuck on the security question. My brain went there. So there's actually two questions, things Mark brought up. One was, how do you color code? And I think the second one was, how much do we cover security? Did I take that? Is that right?
um,
Well, so hold on. Security and performance concerns like that. I mean, that you are presupposing a very specific implementation of firmware first, right? For the security concerns in particular. For performance concerns, I think the differentiation in this document is firmware first is running on the user visible cores. So I think there's always a performance concern. The level of performance concern varies, right? But I think the security concern very much presupposes a specific implementation of firmware first. And so I tend to agree that that's, we want to try and make this as general as possible, right?
yeah,
Um,
I buy that. I guess what I would say is today firmware first, that as we know it, is SMM, and SMM is a broken architecture. To put it kindly, I mean, there's tutorials on
right.
writing attacks, right? Because it's so vulnerable. You can just find instructions for finding new ones. So, I guess I see what you're saying, Vilas, that perhaps, presupposing that is EL3 on ARM is bad. Maybe not. It still has the performance problem, but maybe not the security concern.
Yeah. And so, I think I think the other point Mark is making, and I think this is valid, right, is if something is feasible, whether or not it's recommended depends on your constraints, right? And it is very easy to see a set of service providers or OEMs or whatever, who want to do firmware first for whatever reason, right? And don't want to do BMC first, right? And the problem is, as soon as you start baking those kinds of recommendations into this document, it limits the scope and applicability of it, right? So, there are trade-offs in both cases. And so I think it's just, I think Mark's general point is list the trade-offs, don't necessarily list recommendations, right? The point is just, hey, here is how BMC first should work. Let's focus on that, right?
So, what do we?
Yeah,
I'm just
don't draw the conclusion. Just spell out the advantages and the disadvantages, and let the users decide for themselves which is a better solution. And that was, I think, the whole focus of all of my comments was really just to make it more general and but again, describe the advantages, describe the disadvantages, and then let the consumer decide what works best for them.
so. What would that look like? Are we talking about removing the not recommended in the color coding?
Yeah, my recommendation was if it's feasible, it should be green. And so make it green, but then if you want to put in advantages and disadvantages, do that, but then describe them in detail, right? And ultimately, I think that should be done for all the boxes, right? I mean, certainly you did it for OS first, and I think we all agree that bare metal box, that it's just not feasible. But we also put an explanation there as to why it's not feasible. So, the idea is, I think the boxes should be green where it is feasible, but it doesn't preclude from being able to describe, I just think, the boxes should be green, and then there should be a detailed description of, here are the advantages you might find from a BMC solution, and here are some concerns. Because I think security would still be a concern for most people, despite the fact that you're managing that firmware. There still could be potential attack surfaces that could be compromised, and ultimately, you can make the same case for SMM, but I think our SMM is secure the way we've implemented it. But because
Yeah,
we're not allowing
that's
updates.
the problem. Is we had another. So I can't really talk too much about security. This isn't the gist of this. Your SMM handler is not secure. It is the flaw with SMM is architecture.
Yeah, but hold on. I don't think that's the point of the discussion, and I don't think we need to,
To
travel on
drive
that.
into.
Yeah, I will point out, Drew, I think one thing, and Mark, I think I'm hearing you say this. Presupposing that BMC first is secure and doesn't have security vulnerabilities is probably a bad idea, right? It's not something that has been tested
Yeah.
substantially, right? So saying that you want to move to this for security reasons may or may not be, a valid thought, right? But again, it's really just coming back to what Mark said, right? It's the spec presents the architecture. It doesn't presuppose the conclusion, right? That which one someone will want to use. It can absolutely present the trade-off, right? That makes sense. But, in order to make it more generally applicable, I think it is, useful to think about how Mark framed it, right?
So how do we? Okay, I guess my concern is that the cloud service providers have generally had a problem with firmware first. Among server vendors and silicon vendors, I don't want that point to be lost. It will affect our future decisions about what we buy and what we do not buy. I understand that it may not fit in this specification, so we can figure that out. But I guess I'm a little uncomfortable downplaying why we did this in the first place.
The Yeah, I guess, I mean, Drew, just the way that typically those things are handled, and I'm not saying this is right or that we need to follow this, right? But the fact that a spec has been released and people put a ton of work into it means there is a reason for it. And then the CSPs can all just turn around to their silicon providers and say, hey, we want this thing, right?
Okay.
I mean, that's historically how it's worked, right? I mean,
Okay.
if so I don't know, right? I mean, Mark, am I sort of capturing with the spirit of what you were saying correctly?
I think so. I the idea is I'm just again, uh, you know, I don't think the specification should be so, pointed as to say, you know, this is feasible but not recommended. I would just say, you know, call it out as feasible, but then have, concrete details saying these are, you know, potential issues with this implementation. And ultimately, I think those issues should apply to all the boxes, just because, obviously any solution is likely going to have security concerns, and we can
Um,
list those, right?
so the problem, okay, the problem here. So I'm somewhat open to what you're saying, um, but I am not open to. There is the security holes with SMM are extreme. The architecture is broken. So if I'm calling out the disadvantage of firmware first, I think what I would say is, well, on x86, there's a fundamental flaw in it. Then sure, we can mention security elsewhere, but there's not a it was designed wrong level flaw in the other areas.
Well, that may be, but again, I just think that, you know, you're there are going to be concerns for every single box. Certainly, the performance is a concern with SMI, but it's also a concern from the BMC.
Well,
And,
it's
and
with
the,
probably latency, but yeah.
yeah, the idea is, but so, my thing, I'm just saying, okay, you know, every solution is going to have its advantages and disadvantages. I just say list them, and that's all. We don't have to direct a conclusion. We just describe here what we think the advantages are, and here's what the disadvantages are. And obviously, some of those boxes are, clearly red because they're simply not feasible, and I think that's perfectly okay. Just call it out. Why is it not feasible? And as long as we do that, then it's a descriptive uh, uh, paragraph that basically is not pushing a conclusion. It's basically saying, here's the advantages, here's the disadvantages. Decide for yourself which one works better for you.
So what's the next step? I guess Mark has taken a pass at this with his comments. Uh, Vilas, would you be willing to, as kind of a neutral intermediary, refactor this to remove the colors or?
So Drew, I was thinking along the same line. So right now, the comments are from the cloud provider's perspective, and that's kind of what it says very clearly. What is being asked is put neutral comments, what are just as a notes instead of whether recommended or not, just as notes for everything, and you can highlight uh, pros and cons of in every box, right? So that makes it completely neutral. Uh, for the solutions which are green, and we have comments like this is really adaptable for the proposal here. We can have those rows there listed. For the boxes which we have, okay, this is not suitable for CSPs. We can still have those comments in the form of because CSPs have these security concerns. So that's kind of how I see this. And I created this color coding with my thinking was whenever we are saying not recommended, we'll have this new color. But I think maybe we can completely drop the color coding if that is okay. We don't have to have that. I'm just throwing out ideas here for everyone else to comment.
I don't think the color code has to be there, but ultimately I think we've done part of it there, right? The calling out of the details of why we think one solution has advantage or disadvantage. I'm just saying we should do that for all the cases. And what color the boxes are doesn't matter. If you call it out as non-feasible and then say why, that's enough.
So I guess what's the next step? I guess I'm willing to give this a shot and take a look at it. I may want to put a section somewhere, like a footnote on these boxes and say, from a cloud provider perspective, firmware first must end. But let's see what it looks like. I mean, does someone want to make the changes?
So Drew, I made some changes today.
Oh, but hold on,
Vilas,
Drew.
if you want to go ahead and take another step, yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, and I guess, I just want to poke at what you said, Drew, right? Like, why would we say that here, right? The point of this document is to specify or outline an error handling flow that is currently unspecified, unoutlined, and largely doesn't exist, right? By definition, that means that it's interesting, right? And I guess, like, I don't know that the document has to say what you said, right? I think it's fine to maybe have a few sentences at the very top of the document saying, here is why we are creating this document, right?
Yeah. Well, I guess
Yeah.
my concern is that people are underestimating. Maybe not. So maybe it's just a matter of wording it clearly. I guess where I reserve judgment, Vilas, is whether or not I feel like we properly articulate the security and performance concerns inherent in firmware first. Unfortunately, we can't talk about the security stuff too much, but it's a big deal and it's pretty bad. So that's my concern. My concern is that, I'd be like, oh, well, BMC has a security concern. No, I'm sorry. BMC can be signed code, and sure, it can have attack surfaces, but, it's not one where you can write an exploit that persists across boots and allows you to see everything. It's just in a different class of problem. So let's see. I'm open to, so, Vilas, you want to take a stab at it? Go for it. We'll give it a shot.
Yeah, I mean, I can take a look, right? Let me give it some thought, right? I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, Drew, right? I think I would just say when I write a spec, usually I try and avoid
Understood. Yeah.
subjectivity, right? Like that's
Oh,
all.
but this
Yeah,
is
so
this isn't
yeah.
quite a spec. This is
Yeah, I know.
requirement.
You're right. Yeah.
This is
Yep.
requirements, and requirements means that you're saying what you need. And when I say what I need, it's firmware first needs to go. But as I said, I'm open to what you're saying. I think you need to just show it to me, and we'll work something out. I'm not trying to be unreasonable. It's just that I don't think
I think
people understand the scope of the danger.
I think part of the dilemma that we are into this situation partly because we started with very clear uh, direction that this is all about cloud providers, solution for cloud providers, and now we are trying to actually um,
Support more.
make it neutral, more neutral.
Yeah.
So that's and this is not the only table. I suspect other places will find that we then will be compelled to make it neutral and kind of cover other use cases everywhere. Uh, right.
Well,
But
let's err on the side of getting this done. I mean, I'm willing to see what Vilas has in mind. Perfection's the enemy of good enough. Let's so I will try to be as flexible as I can. I just don't want to uh, folks to underestimate the importance of the dealing with the SMM problem.
So actually, on that vein, Drew, the first part of what you said, I mean, Mark, right? Like, we are talking about a decent, well, a decent number of changes to this document. I mean, would it be awful if we left it as is for the first version and got it done, and then kind of circled back as a open item for the second version, or whatever, because this will be living document, right? I mean, Mark, how strongly do you feel about this?
Well, I mean, I won't say I'm set in concrete, but the problem I have at this point is if SMM is as big a problem as Drew just called out, then you know that probably needs to be part of the document. You know, I don't know that we can do a requirements document and say, take our word for it, you need to get rid of SMM. It needs to be more than that, right? Yeah, I think it needs to be, specific enough where a user can, decide for himself what solution is going to work best for them, and not just, here's how you need to do it. And I don't know how we would manage that in the document, but if the problem is that bad, then we need to figure out a way to describe it so that users consuming this document will know, why we made the decisions we did.
Yeah, it's a dilemma. The we're not at a point where we could describe it because if we did, I'm having trouble getting it described internally because it's bad. I think what we need to do is think about that. I'll go back to the security folks that are involved and see if I can get wording from them. Your point's fine. I mean, your point's perfectly valid. Take our word for it. Well, no, but so let me think about it. My hands are fairly tied. As I said, this isn't a security conversation, and I'm certainly not. We can't talk too openly about this in a publicly recorded message.
Yeah, I just think it needs to have enough detail in it so a
Oh, we lost you, Mark.
consumer.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but you can't hear me. Yeah, let me. I'm going to reset.
Hello?
looks like it.
Wow, did it crash completely? Oh, they just dropped out. Okay.
Yeah,
Can y'all hear me now?
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I lost everything for like a minute there.
Oh, I did too. I
Yeah,
dropped back. So you were talking, Mark, and then I lost you.
yeah. It
Or it
just
might
seems
be
that
just
everything went away for a minute.
Drew, I
Um,
think your system got stuck in SPY. So, sorry. Just kidding.
That's funny.
that would
So,
be
so
delicious irony.
it would be. So let let's let Vilas take a stab at that about making it more spec-like. I guess I want to see. I'm viewing it as not quite a spec, as a little bit more requirements still, but I'm open. I'll let and we'll circle back. And I'll, in the meantime, figure out what I can say and what I can't.
so that's good segue into something I wanted to bring up. Uh, we we want to contribute this as a requirements document. One of the questions that's been asked to me is all of it requirements, or is there still a lot of informative information than normative? So I did not have time to critically review it from that point of view, but it's just something I wanted to share with y'all.
Sorry, could you say it again? It broke up.
So for OCP, a requirements document, I think they look for elements that, okay, this is more of a normative thing, not just information. And I think we are being prescriptive to the vendors about interfaces. So I think it is a requirement, a solid requirements document. But I think the intent is to keep it along those lines. And I think after Vilas had done this cleanup, it's looking more like that. So, but yeah, that's just one of the feedbacks that I got while I'm getting for it to be contributed and presented, talking to OCP folks here. Did I convey my point? So basically, they're saying, hey, when you review it, look at it from that perspective also. That it should have more of a requirement style or normative style writing than less of just description of things that happen, right?
Yeah. Well, so there's going to be. It seems like there's a line that we've got to draw, and maybe what we do is we get rid of the color coding, let VLOS take a pass at the tables, then we can put some comments in about that are kind of normative of, you know, I don't know what we really want in terms of requirements. And I think it's fair to say that the cloud service providers generally don't want to use SMM, and we can say that. And other users might, and that's fine. And then we've kind of drawn a balance between, we'll let people make up their own mind and describing where people have made up their mind.
Yeah, the problem is there, Drew. I don't know that you can, draw that conclusion. The idea is, I guess the way I would say it is, my expectation is that there has to be a a warranty manageability solution, and that's a requirement. You have to be able to manage your warranty, and that can be done many ways. But I don't know that you could simply say, you can't use SMI. You know, you have to have a solution to manage the warranty somehow, some way. And I think that's underlying fundamental. And I I don't know, again, I don't know how you resolve that, saying that the cloud providers don't like SMI or firmware first. I mean, I would just say, there's a fundamental requirement that you have to be able to manage warranty. And how do you do that if you're not going to have an SMI based solution? And that the idea is that even if you say, well, it's going to be a BMC solution, even then, I think it's still uh, something that doesn't happen instantly and ultimately is likely to be a gradual progression rather than an instantaneous one.
Oh, yeah, I mean, your point's valid. I guess what I would say is that HP owns the BMC too, right? And for us, bare metal is this a warranty situation, right? It's a very similar situation to the HP situation. It's just that we don't want to use firmware first, and so yeah, the BMC would do that. And your point about it taking several generations, yeah, maybe. I mean, it'll happen as it happens, but it probably is an instant. But the catch is, if you don't have a target you're aiming for, you'll never, we'll just wander. So that's really the point of this document, is to set that target. And, eventually we'll get there.
Right. I just believe that you've started off the document though with, SMI must go away. And I think I would not. If it was me and I was looking at a solution, I would just say, let's list the problems and see how they can be solved. And maybe those problems can be solved with a BMC solution, and maybe they can be solved with some enhancements in the SoC. And maybe we do both. So ultimately customers would have a choice of having an integrated solution or having a BMC based solution, and it would be their choice.
So the performance problem is also a concern. Um, so I think that from a cloud service provider perspective, we want it done this way. And I think VLOS was right in that this is specifying something new that wasn't specified before. And if you choose not to implement that, then that's fine. That's, your call. And, as far as we're concerned, this is what we're looking for. Is something that doesn't have the security vulnerability and something that doesn't steal the CPU. So it's fine. I think that's where the describing the pros and cons of each one can come into play. But I think we're kind of rat holing here. I think that this conversation to me feels like it's not progressing, and I don't think it really can until we have something new to look at. So my proposal is we table this for today. We get VLOS to make a pass through the table because, VLOS, you're kind enough to open your mouth, and then when we have something new to look at, we can circle back and make a decision.
Yeah, I'm good with that. If everyone else is, how do I do I have to, I can't remember how to use Google Docs. Do I have to do something to make it like, what was it, suggesting mode or something?
So if you see where I'm clicking,
No,
oh,
actually.
I'm not sharing anymore because I disconnected. One moment, I'll show you. Yeah, there's just a little window you click. Okay, it's right here.
Ah, got it. Okay. All right. Thanks. I'll move this to the suggesting. Okay, great.
Okay, well, we'll circle back next week, and hopefully we can get this resolved pretty quickly.
Yeah, I'm traveling next week. But I'll do this. I'll put in my suggestions, kind of label them or something, and then you guys can. I don't I don't feel particularly strongly about it either way. So just go ahead and decide.
Sounds good. Okay, so let's look at some of the next sections. Um, let's see. So Scott, you asked for transition text. So I added it. So I'm going to mark this as done here with you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, yeah, that's what I wanted to talk to you about offline if you were up to, I mean, because I could add it directly. Just so you know, I did, whenever we said in the text I saw it was a figure and it didn't have a reference, I tried to fix it. That was the only
Okay.
actual edits I made. I figured no one would have opposed that.
Yeah. And even today I found a few more because the
Yeah.
stuff got above and below and it was all moved around. So yeah, it's hard to catch all that.
No, yeah, it's a big job.
Okay. Uh, let's see. Oh, and so Carlos had a reconcile. Yeah. Okay. So I think I think we can resolve Carlos's comment. Yogesh, I noticed that your drawing below had added ASL code to HEST, and so I just copied that from your drawing below. I made the two drawings the same. So I think that clears, somehow OpenBMC communicates with ASL code right to the host. Is that good enough for people? In the absence of objection, I'm going to take it as a okay. Oh, I can't hear you, Yogesh.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just frozen on that previous screen. So yeah, Drew, I heard you. That's good. In fact, I thought, oh, I was supposed to edit this to expand the OS kernel block because the code actually runs in the OS context, right? Oh, Drew was also dropped.
Yeah, he's back now.
Okay.
Here.
Yeah.
And yeah, and do leave a minute at the end. I think that we had a new member that wanted to introduce himself.
Yeah, I think so. Drew, why don't we pick up at this diagram next week? I think we are having some issues and it's becoming a little difficult to communicate. But we have a new member, Jai,
Yeah,
and he would like to.
I was going to suggest that. That sounds great.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Jai, it's all you.
Yeah, hey guys, thanks. I'm Jay. I work for AT&T with the pretty much on the DDC SLC architect for the open platform disaggregated thing. So I just wanted to see and learn myself on this OCP forum. Was browsing this morning and I saw some of the challenges we face with the hardware bare metal fault we see some issues on and off. So just wanted to see, and that's why I picked up this forum. This is my first call. I just joined, so I don't want to be like an intruder. So I just want to introduce myself and learn along with you guys and see how much I can contribute.
Yeah, welcome, Jay.
Based
So,
out of
just to know,
Middletown, New Jersey.
yeah. So, hey, so Jay, welcome. Glad to have you here. Just to understand a little bit more, you said AT&T and what kind of systems? I don't know if I'm familiar with SLC and the terminology. Is it like some kind of a telecom edge? Can you give me us a
Yeah,
little bit more?
telecom edge and the core.
Okay,
SLC single line core architect, DDC is distributed architect, and we pretty much have hardwares from EdgeCore, Acton, UFI, and so whatnot.
I see. Yeah, it will be interesting to understand what kind of problems you're facing and what kind of resources your systems typically have to handle those faults.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to introduce and see if you guys give any pointer at documents, anything I can read, or any links that you can provide, that would be helpful. We are also looking at this open BMC for the next gen, as well as the redfish. So I saw a few of those comments going across when Drew shared his screen. So it'll be most interesting for us.
Awesome. Well, welcome, and yeah, we can introduce you to other folks in that community. Jeff Otter, who's here, is also heavily involved in defining a lot of the redfish stuff, and then we have folks pop in occasionally that work on OpenBMC to help as well. So, hopefully we can help you get connected to them.
Yeah. Thanks, Drew.
All right. Well, with that, I think it's time for Vilos's drink on his porch.
Dry Martini is still with us.
Well past time, and yes.
All right, cheers to that.
Sounds
Oh,
good.
you guys hadn't started yet? Oh, sorry. I did.
I felt like starting.
It's 5
Awesome.
p.m.
Okay.
somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
was my camera on? Oh, so.
No.
All right.
All right.
I'll
Have a
talk
good
to you
weekend,
all.
everyone.
Have a good weekend.
Yeah. Have a good weekend. See ya.
Have a good one. Bye.
Out.